Today's odds, 70%. That's the chance the market assigns to Trump declassifying new UFO files by June 30th. That's 20% more likely than oil dropping below $80 a barrel, which basically tells you everything you need to know about 2026. Apparently, the market thinks we're more likely to see alien autopsy footage than affordable petrol. On today's episode, we consider what the wisdom of the crowds thinks of Trump's latest threat to commit war crimes in Iran, what effect it's likely to have on global markets, and whether there's a trade to be had. Welcome to Prediction Market Prof, where we analyse global politics through the lens of prediction markets and try to profit from the wisdom of the crowds. If you're interested in content like this, please like and subscribe. Now, the latest round of US-Iran theatre has everything. An ultimatum, nuclear brinksmanship, shipping lanes, oil markets, and Donald Trump threatening things that would make a first-year international law student quietly close their laptop and leave the room. The core demand from the Trump administration is simple enough. The Strait of Hormuz must reopen properly, ships must be able to pass, mines must be removed, and there must be a no-toll system controlled by Iran. On top of that, Trump is demanding major nuclear concessions. Iran must commit not to produce a nuclear weapon, and it must either destroy or move its highly enriched uranium stockpile. So far, Iran is not exactly responding with, thanks, Mr. President, where do we sign? Iranian officials are insisting that their sovereignty over the strait is non-negotiable. They're rejecting demands to destroy their uranium stockpile, and they're re-warning that any attack will receive what they call a well-deserved response. Don't think that's going to make Qatar and the UAE all that happy. Which is basically diplomatic speak for, please stop confusing Truth Social with command and control. The market problem is this. Trump has now created another deadline. And when Trump creates a deadline, markets tend to do two things. First, they panic. Then they remember who they're dealing with. Because we've seen this movie before. We saw it with tariffs and we've seen it in Iran. Trump threatens maximum escalation, oil drifts higher, risk assets get nervous, everyone starts panicking, it's the end of the world. Then, at the last possible moment, Trump discovers diplomacy, declares a tremendous victory over a problem he personally made worse, and the market rips the other way. That's the famous taco. And to be clear, I don't mean that as a moral criticism. I'm personally delighted when presidents chicken out of starting enormous regional wars, committing war crimes, killing tens of thousands of people, destroying civilian infrastructure. Chickening out is vastly underrated when the alternative is bombing power stations and sending crude oil to Mars. The pattern is what matters for markets, though. Previous times Trump has threatened Iran in this way, he has often backed away from the full military option at the last minute. When that happens, oil drops and risk on assets, especially tech, can surge because markets suddenly decide civilization has been granted another fortnight's free trial. The first time Trump threatens to blow something up and then doesn't, markets panic and then rebound enormously. The fifth time, and markets start checking whether he's already booked the victory press conference. So yes, oil might drift up into the deadline, and yes, Trump once again tacos oil could drop sharply on the relief rally, but I don't think the clean trade here is oil collapses 20%. That feels too cute. For oil to fall that dramatically, we would probably need more than a press release. We would need evidence of actual progress, real peace talks, real shipping flows through the Strait of Hormuz, and real confidence that energy supply is normalizing. If we don't get that, if the ceasefire extended in name only, ships are still barely moving, Iran is still refusing the nuclear terms, and the Strait remains a geopolitical toll booth with missiles, then oil may not collapse at all. In fact, it will probably go back up again. Because a fake ceasefire extension doesn't fill tankers, it doesn't remove mines or turn maritime insurance back into something other than a hostage note with a premium attached. So that's not going to be our trade. Our trade is much smaller, much narrower, and much more speculative. We've bought a small position in Yes shares on Trump announcing a ceasefire extension. Not because we think there's suddenly going to be a serious, comprehensive, permanent peace deal. There almost certainly won't be. The unresolved issues are just too big. The Strait, tolls, mines, uranium sanctions, face-saving sovereignty, and the minor technical question of whether either side trusts the other not to immediately start lying again. But the Polymarket contract we're looking at isn't asking, will there be peace in the Middle East? Thank God, because that market would have the emotional tone of a medieval plague diary. The question is much narrower. Will the US officially announce an extension of the ceasefire or a new framework under which the ceasefire continues? And that's where things get interesting, because Trump needs an off-ramp. He's threatened massive escalation. He has set a deadline. He has positioned himself as the man who can force Iran to submit through power. He's basically threatening more war crimes, more civilization annihilation. But actually following through risks an oil shock, shipping crisis, rising petrol prices, and more to the point, a political disaster at home just before the midterms. And Trump may pretend not to care about political consequences, but if the Democrats win the House and the Senate, he becomes a lame duck president with a better hair dye. So he cares. He cares about power, and he loses power if he loses Congress. So what does he need? He needs something that lets him say, we were tough, they blinked, tremendous progress, nobody has ever reopened a strait like me. That something could easily be a ceasefire extension. Not a real extension, not a real deal, not a final settlement, not a lasting peace, just enough paper to declare victory and move the deadline. And for this particular contract, that might be enough, because no papers needed at all. Trump just needs to announce that there's been some kind of an extension. At around 18 cents, that market appears to be pricing this in as a long shot. And maybe it is. But if the rules resolve on an official announcement rather than on a ceasefire actually working beautifully in practice, or Iran even agreeing to there being a ceasefire, then this is exactly the kind of market where optics matter. Trump doesn't need to solve the Strait of Hormuz. He just needs to announce that he's solving it. So the thesis is simple. We are not betting that Iran capitulates or that oil crashes or that shipping returns to normal. We're not even betting that the ceasefire extension is especially meaningful or real. We're betting that Trump, with his usual bluster and bullshit, facing the consequences of his own deadline, may choose the classic taco exit ramp, announce an extension, declare victory, and leave the hard problems for future Trump. It's a small position because the downside is obvious. Iran may refuse to give him even the optics. Trump may not make that announcement. There's not very much time before expiry. I mean, we're looking at the 3rd, okay, the 3rd of June. So his deadline expires on the 2nd. We're looking at the 3rd that he needs to announce that there's been some kind of a deal. So we may well lose, but at 18 cents, we don't need certainty. We need the market to be underpricing the chance of a face-saving announcement. And in Trump geopolitics, face-saving announcements are not exactly rare birds. So that's the trade. Small, speculative, but rational. We might lose it all, but even at 18%, I think there's a much less than 1 in 5 chance that we will lose. If Trump escalates, oil likely goes higher and this position dies. If Trump tacos with a press conference and a ceasefire extension, yes, shares could reprice very quickly. And if he announced that peace has been achieved because Oman promised to behave and Iran promised to be very reasonable, frankly beautiful people, then congratulations, we may have just found the stupidest alpha in geopolitics. As always, this is not financial advice, it's just one professor staring into the abyss of international relations and asking whether the abyss has mispriced its events contract. I'll keep tracking the shipping data, the oil market, and the Polymarket order books. Let me know in the comments, is this a clever asymmetric trade, or am I just buying a lottery ticket printed on diplomatic stationery? Until the next time, trade smart, size small, and never underestimate a president's ability to declare victory over a problem he hasn't solved.